Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Enterprise Content Management Supporting the Supply Chain, co-hosted by SAP, Optima, and SPS Companies. My name is Garth Despain. I'm a part of SAP's Database and Data Management Center of Excellence, and I have a few announcements as we get started today. This webinar is being recorded and will be accessible at a link that will be provided to you later. Today's event is intended to be interactive. Please temporarily disable any pop-up blockers as they can interfere with the interactive portions of the webinar. You may want to click on the Enlarge Slides button located in the gray bar above the slide window to get a better view of the presentation. If you want to download a PDF version of the presentation, just click the green folder icon located at the bottom of the screen. We invite your questions at any time during the presentation. Click the Q&A icon at the bottom of the screen, and after you've typed your question, click on the Submit button. I'm pleased to introduce to you today our presenters for the webinar, Jaime Gutierrez from Optima and Ryan Porter from SPS Companies. Jaime and Ryan will be sharing their experiences with enterprise content management strategies and solutions that SPS Companies use to improve the way they handle mill test reports and proof of delivery documents. Be sure to type your questions as we go, and we'll cover those as we prepare to conclude today's sessions. So, Jaime, here's a question to get started. Why is it important to consider the management of both data and documents as part of running a good supply chain process?
Thanks, Garth. Let me try to answer that from a key strategic initiative perspective that we have seen and helping our customers around supply chain in general. Certainly, any organization that produces or distributes any type of product will find great benefits in any of these. I will share how Enterprise Content Management, ECM, can help in each one of them. Let's start with customer-centric communication. We all know that today's customer service is key on loyalty. ECM can help on personalization of communications via multiple channels. Call it customer invoices, quotations, or even receivable letters. Next, efficiency in assets and operation. If your organization is able to understand the status of critical components in your operation, for sure you will be more efficient. Having access to content from driver's licenses or to maintenance orders or even assets manuals is no longer a nice to have in this type of environment. And how about streamlining warehouse and distribution? Have any of you deal with messy picking lists, packaging labels, or shipment packets that are not accessible or out of the box generated by your system? Dealing with that type of inefficiencies will certainly streamline your overall process. Last but not least, and we will see a little bit more about this in the next slide, in general, better managing your content. And by the way, it has been identified that 80% of the information in your organization is unstructured content will have impacts in productivity and cost reductions. Something we keep finding as today's challenge is keeping documents in isolated applications that are not part of your core process. The big challenge, therefore, is to align these document-centric business processes with the ERP transactional data, while at the same time integrating any ERP-related or stored repositories of documents into the overall enterprise content management platform. Users who have integrated their systems are reaping a strong return on investment from gains in productivity, customer service, and certainly knowledge access. So essentially, what this means is that business and organizations need to adopt a new paradigm in which the complete life cycle of the content, create and capture, review it, collaboration, accessing or distributing this content, store and securing it, and of course, preserving or destroying it is accomplished within the business process, making the core business process content enriched. So in general, when we talk about ECM, we work around 4 main building blocks applicable to any business process: incoming of content, manage that content, distribute of new content, and certainly providing the governance, means records management and archiving, along those processes to all the content. As an example within supply chain, and Ryan will get into the details of this, we have optimized the ingestion of delivery notes, stored them into the context of customer deliveries based on the SAP ECC transaction, and we are able to consolidate or generate new documents that support the delivery and compliance process, integrating back such documents into the corporate archiving repository and making that accessible via SAP and other systems. With this, I will pass it over to Ryan, who will talk about how SPS is using SAP Extended ECM by OpenText in their supply chain. Thank you. Ryan?
Thank you, Jaime. I want to start off this afternoon with a quick introduction. SPS Companies is a family of companies that comprises one of the largest privately held steel service centers in the United States. We have locations throughout the Midwest, the South, and also in Mexico. SPS Companies went live with SAP in the early 2000s, and since then the company's had a focus on providing high-quality systems that help our business units provide for our customers' needs. I've been with the company for 12 years. During that time, my primary focus has been on the SAP ECC system. The OpenText project we'll be talking about today was my first OpenText project, as well as SPS Company's first OpenText project. Our two largest lines of business are our steel distribution centers and our tube and pipe production facility. Those two business units comprise the largest percentage of our volume and revenue, and they were the business units that were most heavily impacted by the OpenText project that we'll be talking about today. Since steel is a commodity business, the way that we can differentiate ourselves from our competitors is in the services that we're providing to our customers. As a result of that, our mission statement is to consistently exceed our customers' expectations in everything we do. That mission statement affects both our operational units and how they define their processes and the services they're providing to the customers, and then internally as an IT group, that also impacts the projects that we tackle as an IT group. You'll see examples of this and how the OpenText project allowed us to further that mission statement as we proceed farther into the presentation. As we transition into talking about the project, I want to give you a little bit of context about our landscape as we entered our project. Our facilities generate an average of 600 outbound deliveries a day. All of those facilities are batch managed and generate an average of 1,100 batches a day. For all of the batches generated, we have to store a mill test report. Our legacy system for storing those mill test reports had approximately 1.6 million MTRs in it at the time of the project launch. We run one instance of ECC. We have 8 locations that access mill test reports and proofs of delivery. And at the time we launched our project, business users were storing the various business documents that they needed in as many as 12 different storage locations. There were a lot of different reasons that we embarked on our OpenText project. Having documents stored in 12 different locations is obviously problematic and something we wanted to simplify. The two primary documents that we store that have the most importance to our organization are our mill test reports and our proofs of delivery. The mill test reports, or MTRs, were stored in a legacy document management system that we had built in-house. That document management system had reached a point where it needed to either be replaced or upgraded to newer technology. Our proofs of deliveries could be stored in as many as 3 different systems depending upon how the material was shipped to our customer. Beyond just the proofs of deliveries and the MTRs, we recognized a need for easier access to content no matter what type of document it was that our users were accessing. In addition to OpenText, we also looked at redeveloping our legacy MTR system, and we also looked at several of the commercial offerings that were out there. We chose OpenText for a number of reasons. One of the most significant reasons was their partnership with SAP. That tight integration that the partnership with SAP provided allowed us to bring document access into our users' core system and prevent them from having to leave the system to go access some of their key business documents. Ultimately, we used several of the tools that OpenText provides. We used Extended ECM to integrate OpenText with our SAP environment. We used Enterprise Scan for document ingestion. And we used document presentment to take documents that reside in OpenText and combine them into a single PDF that was required by some of our business scenarios. Our long-term goal is to eliminate all of those disparate document management systems that we've mentioned earlier in the presentation. However, we recognize that it was both time-consuming and practical to try and replace all of those in one fell swoop. As a result of that, what we did was we focused on our proofs of delivery and our MTRs. Those two documents have the most impact on our customers and our ability to fulfill our mission statement. And so that was what we included in our Phase 1 implementation. We'll have future phases that will include bringing in some of those other document management systems that we've mentioned. In addition to MTRs and proofs of deliveries, Phase 1 also obviously included the setting up the architecture, the infrastructure, and the software required for the OpenText landscape. Okay, next we're going to talk about the main components of our Phase 1 solution. The first thing we're going to talk about is our mill test reports, or MTRs. As I mentioned earlier, all of our facilities are batch managed, and for all of the batches that we create in our system, we store an MTR. There's two main types of MTRs. There are external MTRs that we receive with material that we've purchased from a supplier, and there are MTRs that we generate for material that we have produced as an organization. Those documents are stored in what's known as a workspace in OpenText. A business workspace in OpenText is basically a place where relevant information about an object or business transaction, including the documents, are tied together. In our solution, we generate business workspaces for sales orders, outbound deliveries, outbound shipments, and batches. Extended ECM out of the box has integrations that allow you to trigger the workspace creation in OpenText from within SAP based on events that happen inside of SAP. What you'll see here on this slide is a screenshot of the batch workspace in our environment. A couple things I want to highlight here are that on the left-hand side, there's metadata that came in from SAP as part of that integration and workspace creation event. And you can also see where there's documents that are attached to that. We use the integrations to create workspaces throughout our solution, not just inside of the MTRs. A couple other things I want to highlight about the MTR solution is there's a lot of instances where we could have several batches that have the same MTR. In the solution that we delivered, we store the document once in one of the batches, and OpenText allows us to link the workspaces for the other batches that share it to the document stored in the first batch. We also leverage the capability from Extended ECM that allows us to take outputs from SAP and directly store those into OpenText. That's how we're storing our SPS-generated MTRs in OpenText. And the other key thing that we got out of the solution that was really beneficial to us was we were able to take monitoring of batches that were missing MTRs out of an external document management system, and using the integration that OpenText provides, pull that back into SAP so our users can monitor that from their primary system. I also want to highlight what it looks like to access a document in OpenText from within SAP. What you're seeing here on the slide is a screenshot of accessing the batch workspace from within the display batch transaction. This capability exists in sales orders, outbound deliveries, shipments, and all of the different places where we are storing business documents in OpenText. This was a really big win for us from an ease of access perspective that allowed our users to spend less time going into other systems to pull their business documents. PODs was the next major component of our Phase 1 implementation. And in addition to making accessing proofs of delivery easier, we were also able to bring all of our proofs of delivery into a single system as opposed to the 3 systems that we used in the past. And beyond that, we're also able to simplify the document ingestion process for PODs. Our carriers scan all the proofs of deliveries into their system, which are then sent to us. In most cases, our carriers, when they scan them, they're not segregated or sorted the way we would need them to be to attach them to the appropriate delivery workspace. We added a barcode to our PODs, and Optima was able to build a solution that would read the barcode and automatically identify which delivery workspace that proof of delivery belonged to and put that into the appropriate delivery workspace in OpenText. One of the other things that we're able to do with our proofs of delivery solution was outputs directly within SAP, the delivery, the pack list. When those are generated in SAP at goods issue, they automatically store in the delivery workspace, giving us a persistent copy of some of those documents that we've not had in the past. The other component of our Phase 1 solution was our shipping documents. When we ship material to our customers, we provide them a shipping packet that includes a copy of their pack list as well as the MTRs for all of the batches that were shipped on that outbound delivery. If we ship them material that has an MTR provided by one of our suppliers, we stamp that MTR with customer relevant information from our deliveries. In the past, those documents came from several different systems and we didn't store a single copy of the shipping packet that went out. Under the new system, we take that information and using document presentment in OpenText, we bring all of those pieces of information and documents into a single PDF file that we then store in OpenText as a persistent copy. We're able to deliver that document to customers via a print copy, an email copy, or both as the customer needs. We started our project with an RFP process to help us select our implementation partner. We selected Optima for several reasons. The biggest reason was their experience with the OpenText product. The other reason was the proposal that they provided demonstrated clear understanding of what we were trying to accomplish and gave us a good plan for how to accomplish the goals for our project. The project launched in January of 2017 and was originally planned as a 5-month project. It actually took us 10 months to complete the project and we went live in October of 2017. The reason that it took longer to complete the project was related to the design phase. It took us a lot longer than we anticipated to build a solution design document that included all of the details that we needed to be successful in the project. We had a variety of members of the IT team involved in the project that equated to 1.2 full-time equivalents for the duration of the project. For training on the project, rather than go out to all of our facilities, we designated super users from each of the facilities and brought them to a central location and conducted the training there and had those folks go back and train the other users at their locations. This allowed us to go live a lot sooner than if we had had to send members of our IT team out to all of the various locations. We view our OpenText projects as a success and we're able to meet the core objectives of the project. I want to highlight a couple of those here as we wrap up today. The out-of-the-box integrations with SAP have freed up our developers who previously worked on the legacy system to work on more impactful tasks than building interfaces between our legacy system and SAP. Additionally, we now have all of our proofs of delivery going into a single system and have much easier access to those documents, which allows us to better fulfill our mission statement and provide exceptional customer service. We're also well positioned for the future now. We have the infrastructure in place that allows us to launch future phases of our project that bring all of those other disparate document systems into a single content management system. We are already in the process of taking what we implemented for Phase 1 and rolling that out to our Mexico business unit, which was not included in the original Phase 1 implementation. We're working with one of our primary suppliers at this point as well to automate the ingestion of mill test reports into the system, saving our facility users a significant amount of time spent both scanning and uploading documents into OpenText. Part of our licensing for OpenText also includes vendor invoice management, and now that we have the infrastructure in place and the landscape in place, we're now able to start pursuing and investigating the possibility of a vendor invoice management project in the future as well. We learned a lot from the project, and I wanted to share a few of those lessons with you here as we close the presentation. The first thing I want to talk about is solution design. It's critical and impacts everything that comes after it. And one thing that we learned is that we didn't allot enough time for that phase of the project. Ultimately, we extended that phase of the project to make sure that we got a solid design document that had clearly documented all of the needs that we had for the project. If you don't get that right, it's going to be detrimental to the project's success. One of the other things I want to talk about from a lesson learned perspective is landscape sizing. We have an on-premise solution, and one of the things that we learned is the importance of sizing it correctly. We've had to make several adjustments to our landscape since we've gone live that we could have avoided if we had sized the landscape correctly from the very beginning. The next thing I want to talk about is selecting the right users for the project. As you select your super users or your business users who are going to be involved in the project, you want to make sure you're picking the right people. Just because somebody is going to be the end user of the solution doesn't necessarily mean they're the right person to be your super user on the project team. Ultimately, you need to select users who are going to be the ambassadors of this project to people outside of the organization and the people that you're going to be working with directly on a day-to-day basis on the project. So you need to be picking people who are going to be willing to come with an openness to explore new ways of doing things and are bought into the project. Related to that, you need to provide those users with an effective test plan. So we definitely learned that it's important to make sure you give them a clearly defined test plan that is got everything that you need from them detailed in it. Especially make sure you're engaging those users' managers and they understand both the amount of time that's going to be required of those users that are going to be part of your project team, as well as the schedule that you're going to put out there for those users. Finally, with any project, communication is key. It needs to be you need to make sure that you're getting timely and effective communication out there, both to the members of your project team as well as the organization as a whole, so that they understand the project that's coming. And make sure that your communication is concise and clear, and you're not bombarding them with so much communication that they stop reading the communication that you're sending out to them. This time I want to say thank you guys for allowing us to share some details about the project that we had, and turn it back over to Jaime so he can tell you a little bit more about Optima.
Thank you, Ryan. A lot of good information. So certainly it was great working with you and the rest of the SPS team as part of that project, and we're looking forward for additional rollouts of the Extended ECM platform that you have in place. Just to close, Optima is an enterprise content management organization focused on optimize this type of processes in your organization. So we will be happy to discuss any needs or questions outside of this webinar one-on-one. Back to you, Garth.
Well, that brings us to the end of the formal presentation part that we have planned for today. Jaime and Ryan, thanks for making that presentation. Now it's time for our questions and answers. We'll get through as many of these questions as we can in the time that remains. And so let's get started on answering your questions.
Alrighty then, I think it is now time for our Q&A part of the session. So I just want to remind everybody that you can put your questions in the Q&A icon, which is at the bottom of your screen. Type your question in there in the question box. We will try to read through those, answer them live as much as humanly possible. And I think we have a little bit of time here. So Ryan, Jaime, thank you very much for that. Very compelling presentation. Let's see what kind of questions and answers here. Actually, the first one I have, by the way, standard one, which is how do I get the slides. Just as a reminder to everybody, I know we covered this at the beginning, there will be a link sent to all registrants and attendees where you'll be able to watch this video again and again and again to your heart's content. So we'll be providing that through that link. Alrighty, I've got quite a few questions here, and it looks like they have a lot to do with migration. So let's see, maybe first one here for Jaime. What would you recommend to someone looking to switch their legacy system to a new system? Ryan spoke a lot about old systems moving to new systems. Obviously, you guys did that. Anything that they should be looking for or looking at in doing the switch?
Thank you, Michael. So thank you, everybody. It's an interesting question. So certainly, I think that several things. I will say that the first advice will be to really identify your pain points. What are you trying to solve, and include them as a KPIs in that design. And Ryan mentioned about how key the design is. So we need to include that so you can measure this again. It's easier to design a solution when you have specific areas to consider and not a general or a very broad requirement, right? When you move to a solution like SAP Extended ECM by OpenText, it's for sure that it will do much more than what your legacy system used to have. So you need to understand that. You need to have a high-level understanding of the capabilities of the tool, but really gather your user requirements to identify really what are the priorities, right? What are the must to have or the nice to have, but not just go with the flow of I want exactly what I used to do in my legacy system. Take advantage of the new technology, take advantage of the new functionality, but focus that approach in the end user requirements. Last but not least, maybe I will say get executive sponsorship in your project. Even when it's a legacy migration, you need to accelerate decisions. You need to include the sponsors to smooth any change, any impact on the change, and to maybe be more effective on the project deployment.
Well, thank you, Jaime. I'm sorry?
No. Asking you if that was enough.
Yeah, I think I have a follow-up here that I'm going to send to Ryan because it's related. So Ryan, it was asking about the biggest factors in making the system change, and I think they're asking how was the old system affecting the company?
Yeah, so I mentioned it a little bit in the presentation, but our legacy MTR system was definitely built on old technology. We had some new enhancements we wanted to do, and it really was time for that system to either be completely redeveloped or replaced, which was a big part of that. The many document management systems that we had was definitely a factor as well. Getting everything together into a single content management system was something that we definitely wanted to do. We alluded to it a little bit in the presentation as well. Having all of those different document management systems definitely made it harder to access our information, and when customers called looking for some of that information, it was a much more difficult prospect to get it to them than it is now that we have OpenText in place.
All right, so then I guess a follow-up question was what were the biggest challenges in that transition from the old system?
So one of the big challenges that we faced just revolved around how unique the MTRs are. There's a lot of really great integrations that OpenText provides out of the box, but what we do with those MTRs is a little unique. So some of the challenges were related to, okay, well, how do we deliver that consolidated shipping packet, and how do we have all the same kinds of functionality for MTRs that we did in the legacy system? So trying to figure out all of those business scenarios and building a solution that handled all of that was probably one of the more complex things that we faced.
Okay, so and it was something, by the way, Ryan, you did highlight as far as what extended the project was those custom documents. Maybe to Jaime kind of follow up on that. Obviously, they went through the process of making these new documents to fit their business process, improve the way they're interacting with their customers. Is there any typical improvements that you guys see from a productivity perspective? I know Optima's done many of these projects, but maybe any metrics or data that you could share on what you typically see as a productivity or a performance improvement?
Sure, Michael. So, well, that one is a little bit hard to pinpoint into a given number, as some organizations really, the process might be impacted in different areas and different than others. Let me share maybe something. IDC some years ago did a study and determined that a typical employee wastes up to 7 hours per week, 7 hours every week per employee when he's managing paper, when the documents are in a paper base. So if you think about 1,000 people team, that will add up to 350,000 hours wasted in a year. It has been determined that using Extended ECM, for example, can improve that into maybe 60 to 80% typically. So you are reducing thousands of hours just with the implementation of the solution. Maybe I can use an example. One of our customers, very similar to SPS Companies, the use case was packaging labels. They reported, and actually there's a use case published by SAP around this, where they saved 10,000 hours for a business analyst accessing information related to SAP during the very first 9 months after implementation. So that was a saving of close to $40,000 per month for them.
So that's like 5 people of savings, right?
Absolutely.
So that could be significant. And of course, at SAP, we don't like to talk about replacing people. What we want to talk about is putting them a more value-added project. That is a consistent trend, by the way, Jaime. You mentioned there on the hour savings. We have customer after customer that does talk about true time savings in implementing these types of solutions by removing as many as 1 in 10 hours of just trying to find documents, searching, filing documents, properly tagging documents, those types of things. So we see that at SAP quite a bit. So thank you for that. So let me actually, Jaime, I think this one goes for you as well. I'm sorry, I am paraphrasing these questions. I'm expanding on them a little bit. But the question was asking about most important things a company would look at first when making these types of changes. So again, thinking in the project that you possibly did with SPS here, but in all of your projects, there's got to be the top 1 or 2 first things that you do. Where do you start? Where do we really want to start these types of projects? You don't start at the end, you start at something small, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, Michael. And this might be related to a little bit to my initial answer, right? Is we have seen that a solution like OpenText, Extended ECM, can do many things in many areas of your organization. Our recommendation is certainly identify your use cases where you want to start and where you will have quick wins or better wins here, right? Knowing what you really want to solve is key. So we will be helping you in how to solve it, but you need to tell us what is your problem, right? We can't really come and guess on the problem. We can give you some experiences in other customers, but where we add value is with the solution is a much better way to solve an identified problem. So that's something that will be important, identify your key use cases. Something that maybe Ryan mentioned as well was when you are doing sizing and when we are helping you to do sizing, consider the volume of documents that you are going to induce or include in this solution, not just based on the history. but consider a much higher use base. When your users start seeing the value of having the content in the context of your transactions and how easy it is to add new content, the usage and therefore the volume will dramatically increase. And Ryan expressed this when we were talking about sizing, and we have seen in other customers, is when you are using 10,000 documents per year in your legacy system and you size that system based on that, you might face that you need to increase the platform because people start using much more, and you end up doing millions of documents in a year, and certainly a system size for 10,000 is different than a system size for a million or so, right? So you want to have a platform that is prepared, that is sized accordingly, and get to know what is the process, what is the use case that we're going to solve. And as you mentioned, Michael, you can have a big bang, but certainly in ECM it's much better to go in phases where you can start improving specific processes at a time.
I totally agree. We see that over and over again, don't we? All right, guys, remember we you can add your questions by clicking on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. I only have what looks like one more question here, so want to before we wrap this up, please take the time to ask your questions. The last question I actually had here was again for Ryan. You talked a lot about some of your older systems and what started, why you wanted to update your systems. But the question really was specifically some advice from you, or advice to someone who is on the fence about making a change. In other words, I'm on my old system. It works. There's probably, it's not perfect. But we've figured out workarounds. They're on the fence. Why would they consider doing this? Any advice from you, Ryan?
Sure. So one of the big things that we got out of it that was a benefit over our old system, because you're right, our old system, it worked. It did what we needed to do. We had more enhancements that we needed to make. But ultimately, the integration with SAP was a really big win for us. The fact that our users are now able to access their documents from directly within SAP, the out-of-the-box integrations that come with that allow you to have pre-built interfaces with the document management system, were all really big things for us, and it's something our users really like. The fact that they don't have to leave to go to a legacy MTR system or pick up the phone to call somebody for a delivery. Our salespeople can just go and jump straight into their content from within SAP via those integrations was a really big thing. So we have definitely appreciated that. Our users have liked that. We've had users who've made other suggestions as we were going live about, well, could we do this too, as they saw what we could get out of the system.
Perfect. Thank you, Ryan. Like I said, that was actually the last typed in question so far. So if there's no other questions, we're going to wrap up here. I don't know if Jaime, you want maybe a last word, and then if we don't have any other questions, we'll wrap up.
Michael, thank you. No, all I have to say is thank you, everybody who attended today. Thanks, Ryan, and all the team in SAP to help us to put this together. So hopefully this was informative for you. There's much more use cases here, and we will be happy to share additional experiences and help you in your ECM journey.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So if there are no other answers, I have to go back and check the Q&A. No other questions. I guess from that, we'll kind of wrap this up. As a reminder, the webinar will be available on demand. You'll receive a link within the next couple of days to give you access to this session so you can watch it at your own leisure. I want to thank our participants today, obviously Ryan from SPS and Jaime from Optima. And on behalf of SAP, I want to thank you for your attendance and have yourselves a wonderful day. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.